3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. To the side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Center. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3 to your right, to your left. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3 to your right, to your left. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3 to your right. 2, 3 to your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands in your waist. Rotating. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, and stop. Center cross. Knees. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center. Hands in your waist. Neck turning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1. Stop. Back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center. Tilt to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Okay, circular movements down. 2, 3. Reverse. 1, 2, 3. Center. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay, spread your feet. Turn your shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, stretch it out. Switch. 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 Switch, straighten the front knee. Switch. 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 Center. Okay, shake it out. Okay, deep breathing, hands up. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay, shoulder roll, circular movements. reverse, and center. Okay, press, release, exhale, inhale, breathe through your nose. And stop. Palms up, pull in, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay, wrists. Reverse. Okay, palms down, bigger circle. Okay, one more. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, let's shift the weight. Okay, shift over, lift knee. Okay, swing the arm, leg swing. So get your leg working if you can. Okay, switch, other side. Try to track your center line. And center. Okay, out right in front of you, crisscross. And center. And center. Shake it out. Hands up. Pull in, inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, silk grilling. Switch. and center. Okay, cross, open and close. Switch. Okay, center. Circular movements. Okay, lower hoop. Okay, center. Shoulder height. Elbows down. Lower palms down. Extend. Okay, deep breathing. Okay, diagonal flying. Switch. Okay, cloud hands. Okay, palms down. Lift up. Close. Lift up. Carry tiger to the mountain. Infinity sign. Okay, form the fist. Okay, palms together. Okay, thumbs up. Switch. And center. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So before we do the draw the bow, pull the feet together. Okay. Pivot. So the feet are closer now, right? So pivot. So it's opening and closing the hip. Okay, let's open up the shoulder width. Okay. Okay, back to shoulder width. Reverse. Switch. Switch. Reverse. And center. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing. Okay, draw the bow. fan to the back. Okay, raise the hand. Okay, palms down. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, go through the sequence. Ready? Just the mapped out form. Tai Chi Paradigm. Turn the corner. Grasp the sparrow's tail. Single whip. Brush knee 4 times. Fist under elbow. Repulse the monkey. Diagonal flying. Insert the needle. Fan through the back. Turn. Parry and punch. Step up, form the fist. Punch. Divert, block, and punch. Cross the arms, leopard and tiger springs to mountain. Carry tiger to the mountain. Raise the hand. Stork flaps wings, turn. Relax the shoulders. Left side grasp the sparrow's tail. Single whip. Hold the ball. Reverse. Diagonal flying. Sit back. Stroke down. Pot the horse's mane. Step up. Stroke down. Pot the horse's mane. Cross corner. Jade Lady work shuttle. Cross corner. Jade Lady work shuttle. Hook your wrists. Cloud hands. Hold the ball. Reverse the ball. Diagonal flying. Close. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Okay, so with the Tai Chi Paradigm, does anybody have a question on a section that we'll work on before we move on to the long form in about 12 minutes? Because of, the first hour really works with the paradigm form. So anybody have a question? Okay, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So because Tai Chi is actually an integration of body. So while we see hand movements, and most of us will see hand movements before we see anything else, because that's just the nature of our, the way we do things, is that the hands throughout life has always been reaching and grabbing. That's a survival skill. So when you see hand movements, it's usually out here. So as your understanding starts to become much more aware and astute about body mechanics and movement, then you start to realize that it's an arm. So when we say a hand movement or a foot movement, it's really a leg movement. It's the whole appendage. So when we move the hands, it's really part of the legs. So when I refer to upper-lower coordination, the movements in the upper body are directed or driven by the legs. So where you see as a lean, it's the pushing off the back leg. So your legs are actually working as a relationship. When the back leg straightens, the forward knee yields to that. Because if you just did this, then that's the front knee pulling the back leg. So movements and strength should be generated from the back leg to project the forward movement. So what you see as a lean is really a transition from what is happening from the back leg, taking it forward. Now what you see as a hand movement becomes a function of that. So the hand movement is much more passive than you would probably think. So if you bring the passive side to the hand movement and the active side to the leg, and you yield in the front and follow with the hand, then the body is driven like that. Now, you can't really tie the upper body and lower body unless you incorporate the torso. Yeah, so what sometimes isn't understood is that your torso is like a cylinder. So when a cylinder turns like this and turns like this, you just take a cross section of your cylinder, which is a hoop, a circle. So if my hand is here in the cylinder, just taking this cross section here, if I turn my body, it's going to go forward. If I project from my leg and I turn my body, it's going to go forward. So when you integrate and you combine the leg movement with the torso movement and the hand extension, it becomes one continuous cycle movement where each of them is supporting each other. At the same time, you're diminishing the amount of strength you're using as a physical movement. Well, so that's something else. The lengthening of the spine is actually a retraction. So if you go forward and then you settle in the front, as it finishes the movement, as the hip starts to settle, the back starts to become more erect. So that's counterbalancing a movement. So counterbalancing and all these ideas can't happen until your body's soft enough to respond and sensitive to the action. So we're always counterbalancing. When I go like this and I go like this, that's a counterbalancing. When I go like this with the leg, there's a counterbalancing. The counterbalancing is how we control our center of mass. So in Tai Chi we say forward, backward, right, left, center. So the forward movement is this. The backward movement is this. The right side movement is this. The left side movement is this. And it cycles again. But between this, and this, we have what we call the central equilibrium. And that's the last few classes we talk about central equilibrium. It's your spine over the back heel. Now my spine is there, that's your axle. When it comes forward and I turn, I can't go directly here. I have to transition slightly to my left because my balance point is on this side. So the push actually doesn't go directly straight. It actually curves over like that slightly. And then when you sit back, you really sit back and then turn again like this. Now you can't get your spine over your heel if you don't include the rotation. So it goes back and forth, and then it starts to be a rocking thing. And that's why, it's a challenge for newer people. Then as you evolve, your body has to become pliable. So when I refer to the conflict in movement is tension. So you can make these supple, but then the upper body becomes somewhat stiff because it doesn't know. So it's rigid because it really doesn't understand what it's supposed to be doing. So while this is a principle that you're housing here as information, your body has to go through this process and then interpret what it thinks you're trying to do. So the body will figure this out as the brain feeds it that information and back and forth. So there's that feedback. So it's a constant feedback. That's why a mind-body exercise is so powerful in a sense that relationship constantly evolves. It'll evolve as long as you're doing it, and you'll discover. So the discovery is really going through this process. So then the integration of body means the ankles, the knees, the hips, right, the shoulders, the elbows, and the wrists, which are still your hands, have to be working in harmony. There's give and take as a relationship, and then there's passive and active, which is part of what we're talking about in the yin and yang concept. black and white, positive, negative, up and down, right and left. So that's all part of that balance, and it's that balance is really controlled by your mind, who directs the movement, and it's also controlled by the same binary system that we have throughout everything that we do. There's switches. It's either on or off. So a synapse is on or off. So you're firing all these synapses and your neurons are working. Each muscle fiber is taking on a different bit of information. That's how we create movement. And the more complex the movement, you can imagine what's going through here. So when we speak of brain plasticity and all the stuff we talk about, it's just as simple as brush knee and push. Now I didn't even get down to where you distinguish it between the hands and the feet. But when you go forward, your toes will grab. You articulate the fingertip to direct the motion, and each finger actually controls a different direction of force. So when you turn your hand, Even this, it's not just this, it's this. So when we do all these fundamentals, and this is something that people overlook because it's not that you overlook it, you didn't really realize that that's supposed to be there. So when we hold the ball, right? That's simple. We hold the ball. So there's a stillness. What we're building is generally muscle memory. Muscle memory is joint angle positions. Joint angle positions is what you're manipulating. So your skeletal structure that creates all these positions becomes something that your body knows, because we're using our own body as a reference. Right? So every time your hand goes through vertical and horizontal, it has to pass through a position that it had recognized. So then over time it starts to discover that that's what it is, goes into your subconscious, and then it just happens. So when we're holding the ball like this, there's your first position, there's your second position, there's your other side, and it levels. And then we have a slant, then we have a diagonal, we have a shift, we move 1, 2. There's vertical, not like this, like this. We have this. This transitions to here, then we divert to here, and we're here. Now when this is here, so every time your joint folds and unfolds, that's a manipulation. Every time it folds and unfolds, there's a minute contraction. Every time it folds, the vessels open and close because it's like a hose. You bend it, it's going to create a blockage. You let it go, it flows. So if you're always in a position like this in stiffness, then you don't get fluid motion in the internal mechanisms. So between this, and this is action. Just opening the form, you already did that. So you consider this as straight as neutral. You consider up and down as the opposing directions. So to balance it, you have to move through it. You're here, then you're here. You're here, then you're here. You're here, then you're here. So you see the wrist is moving, right? That's why when you go into positions and you hold them and you release, you can feel surges in your fingertips. You can feel pulsation. You can feel that's your fluids, the blood, feeding the cells oxygen, and that's how we get things that happen throughout the body. Now, most of us are pretty rigid in certain areas because the body doesn't know to let go. So that's kind of the idea, the concept in a nutshell, and it's all related to movement. So movement is essential to life. Movement actually is the driving force. And even though we may not be skillful in movement, even when you sleep, you'll roll in the bed, you move. You don't know you're doing this. It's in the subconscious because your body is responding, telling you that it needs something there or something there. Now, if you're sitting on your leg for a long period of time and your leg goes to sleep, what happens? You cut off the circulation. It starts to buzz. And it starts to buzz because the muscles want you to stop moving. So Right, Bob? So with that said, when you get to the next level of learning, we do a long form. It's more sequence, more transitions, more of the same, but then functionality comes into play. Functionality is the body mechanics behind the movement. How much strength do you use? Because in Tai Chi, one of the major principles, use your will and not strength. 用意不用力, right? So what does that really mean? We never really know how much strength we should be using because we can't measure it in a sense of measuring it. But we can feel it as a correctness of motion. It's soft enough, it's fluid enough, it's connected enough. But we really can't detect. So when I say 60, 40, 70, 30, that's just a sort of a gross idea. But the only thing that's really absolute is 0 and 100, right? And when is it 0 and 100? When you take your step. When you plant your foot, you transition between that 0 and 100 and it's going through that. Then when it gets to a point where you have to take the next step, it's 0 and 100 again. So 0 and 100 is really all you really have as a true accuracy of that shifting of weight. So when you're 100, 0, you know you're supporting all your weight and it's stacked. So that's the concept. And stacking is the most efficient way of carrying your body weight because your skeletal structure is aligned. And that becomes a whole nother topic. Okay, let's go through the long form. Then we can do a few dosing of drills of what you can do to help the posture. Okay, ready? Begin. Carry tack into the mountain. Okay, deep breathing. So, anyways, so we can, last few classes we talked about dosing the movement. Dosing is just a more concentrated dose of whatever is. So postures are practiced over and over again so that you can discover, like the brush knee, hopefully what I mentioned earlier was helpful enough. But we have to, understand the postures, and we have to understand the transition. So with form, you connect postures by linking them together. And during the footwork and the transition from one posture to the next has to be linked together. So the linking of that has to tie into the idea of that relationship of substantial and insubstantial, and how the upper body moves with the lower body tied to your torso. So that's something that has to become a motor skill. So while we do this as strum the lute, we see that it's a vertical line. You're practicing that. But when we turn, we have to build that movement into your transition, because isn't it that happens that over here we have to come back to here, and then we switch to here if we were to do another one or go to grass spot. We have to go through this position, but then we have vertical and horizontal. So you want your exchange to connect between vertical and horizontal, like in Jade Lady Work Shuttle. And we start to turn, we have to go to lower position here and turn. Then this elbow has to drop, and then that builds the continuity of a hand and a leg movement that work together. Because hands and legs work together directionally, so it has to be compatible with direction. So, but first you have to get this accurate enough. You have to have this accurate enough. You have to have this accurate enough to create the combination of positions to get into your final position, which is the end movement of that posture. That synchronization, really that linkage, is how we build, the harmony in the body, where you're moving. Because, just like walking, we don't just swing the arms, we don't just walk like this. Unless you're carrying something, there's always a relationship. So when we move, that's actually what we're doing when we're walking. But because we don't walk a lot, our body becomes unaware that it twists, that the arms swing. So this swinging and this swinging is a great exercise for people that are somewhat, inactive, because you just do this. So that's actually an exercise in itself. You just have to do that with the breath and movement. You cycle through that a couple 100 times a day. That actually will help you build better circulation. But then you're standing. So, when I first opened the school, we had a couple of mottos. One was fitness starts with martial arts, and if you don't move it, you lose it. So that's one of the things. And, anybody that knows me, I've always been pretty active, even when I had a previous business. Everything that I did always was pretty physical, because I always had to move. And anyone that knows me that, on a social level, if you put me in a corner and it's quiet and not a lot of things happen, I'll fall asleep. I'll do that anyway. I'll fall asleep. I'll fall asleep over there if you leave me alone. And that's just, the way I am. So that comes up with a new motto. Think on your feet, not on your seat. Because that's what we do. We're on our feet. We have to move. All the computer companies are putting these tests. You have to stand. Because if you're sitting, you're not getting good circulation in the lower half of your body. And we become dysfunctional in the lower body. So most important thing to keep functional, especially on your feet, is to be on your feet. So that's what's important. So think on your feet, not on your seat. So that could be something. I don't know if that's original, but it's a model that we should adapt. Just try to, stay active, stay on your feet in order to get your weight control your balance. So when we're here, this is footwork. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is handwork, right? So when we're here, when we turn, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If that's grass or sparrow's tail. 1, 2, 3, 4. Brush knee, same footwork, but what you're trying to do is keep the hands creating the geometry of position from one movement to the next. So between vertical and horizontal is a constant exchange. And you can do just grass the sparrow's tail right on the left side. You can pass through the single whip as a transition if you want to do it like that. That's very fundamental, pretty basic. And you go to the other side and do grass the sparrow's tail. So that just builds this. So your body knows. Because when you're doing the form, a form is a vehicle to practice your postures, to house the postures so that you don't lose them, right? And then there's a mapping of the footwork is directional. Just like out in the street, you get a map, a GPS that takes you directionally. We direct ourselves through the pivoting of our feet to take us in directions. In fact, this is one of the strategies I teach people with Parkinson's because they have trouble turning directions, changing directions without knowing, because our body, doesn't really know how to do these things until you teach it. So if you lose this ability, you really don't, know how to regain it. So when we're here, we turn. There's so many methods of turning in directions that we build it into something that becomes innate. So when we pivot the foot forward and back and we turn and turn, or we're turning like this, we're building that relationship and the connections. So you have up, you have down, so to get your leg to do this, if it's a motor skill, those muscles have to be engaged. And it's not engaged because it's forced to be there. It's engaged because you told it to do it. Right? That's a mindful experience and using your mind to direct. So that's the concept. So when we're here and we turn, you can just do a series of these and then take it to center. That's compatible direction. I'm moving in the direction that I'm turning. So if we have right and left, then we're just building both sides. If we have right and left as an exchange, then you're tying your torso into the movement as well as your feet. So it does, at different phases of that learning, sometimes your body will start to build the torso, maybe it's the legs, but ultimately all of it's supposed to be working together. So the simple fact that you're doing this. Now, when I go like this, there's a lower position. When I go like this, there's a lower position. So that might not have been picked up when we're doing this. Right? So that's really what has to happen for fullness and volume in your movement. Because you're dealing with, three-dimensional movement, you're dealing with axes, XYZ axis. So the direction of movement has to be understood in the body as horizontal, vertical, and so forth, just really those two. But when we turn directions, now you have a different plane of movement. Those planes of movement have to be working with your axes. Now, we're just talking about if the body, just the spine, right, there's a vertical. When we talk about the hands, you see the horizontal and is your elbow position. So when we turn right to left, or we're in the vertical elbow position, we have to discover that, but then feel your position so that your body starts to recognize that. Because sometimes I see stork flaps and the shoulders are up. You have to relax. If you relax the shoulders, what do you have to do with the hips? Relax the hips. If you relax the shoulders and you sink your elbow, what do you have to do with your knees? Drop your knees. Right? If you seat the wrists, that's seating the wrists. Remember we talked a little bit about that before. Flat, seating the wrists, going the opposite direction. When you seat the wrists, you should seat your ankle. So what is seating the ankle? Your Achilles releases and your shin bone goes forward towards your knee. Okay, so when your knees free up and your ankles free up, then turning. When we turn like this, you align the toe with the knee with the toe, but it doesn't have to actually always be aligned, because when you're making a transition, there's a shift there. So your knee, finds a new position relative to your ankle. Your ankle finds a new position relative to your hip. So if those three joints are working independently, then you're going to have a conflict. The conflict is going to be throwing your knee out, straining the ligaments and tendons, and you would have a joint problem. And if you do that for a long time, you're going to have, damage. So, on a physical side, because I've been pretty physical all my life, my joint should be pretty bad. But the thing is, because it's wear and tear. But the human body is able to adapt and repair itself. But if you're doing it without straining it, and I'd had my, when I was young, a lot of incidents where I got hurt. But you learn from those experiences, and then you start to realize that there's a correct way of doing it and a not so good way of doing it. So that's what we should be doing, learning in Tai Chi, is how to move our body efficiently, effectively, and naturally. And everything that we do is actually working toward naturalness, no strength, and it becomes efficient. And all the traditional arts work toward that goal. And if you don't, then it becomes either deficient on one side or excessive on the other. So excessiveness is, there's cause and effect. So there'll be some, could be damage. Deficiency means you're not putting any effort into it, and you're not going to get the benefit, because then you become weak. So you got to find that balance. So we're almost time. So this footwork that we're doing, if you haven't figured this out by now, that happens in stork flap swings. But because brush knee, grass the sparrow's tail, and jade lady work shuttle work as two sides, that simple turning can be used as a drill to practice those three postures, because they're pretty balanced on the other side. So you can do both sides. And I call it dosing. You're just concentrating on and focusing on just that posture, so that once you've developed and discovered the timing and the phases and the action, then you insert that back into your form. And it'll go back into the form as a natural course anyways. And then you'll discover that the form as a vehicle, there's so many different ways of practicing it to achieve the different goals, whether it's faster, smoother, more integrated, more blocky, more geometric. These are all, different concepts of how to approach your movements, because movement is itself, a study. It's like a science in itself. All right, ready? We bow. So don't forget, tomorrow, 9:30, same place, same. It should be good weather. Is that Carlos? Carlos. Boy, you're pre-pandemic.